I think there's been some average news lately when it comes to Polkadot. Now, nothing I say is financial advice. However, Polkadot developers very recently made this post saying how they were introducing something called RevX, which is supposedly still in beta. Now, RevX, right? Supposedly, this was done to help lower the barrier for new developers and simplify contract deployment with Polkadot Virtual Machine, in which case a lot of people like to tell me, who cares about this type of nonsense? I mean, when it comes to DOT, it's around 31 times lower than $50, which again may not sound so good, but I'll talk about later why I don't mind. But here's the thing. Polkadot with this, right? I think arguably if it could attract more developers moving forward, if there's more people building, why not? That's the way to take a look at it. Because again, this right here is catered towards developers, right? But the issue is this, as of right now, a lot of developers simply don't want to enter into this space because it's not doing the best. So what they're doing right here is not going to have any sort of instant gratification. It's not going to create any sort of short-term attention. No, but this could matter, I think, down the line. Later, if let's say there is a moment in time in which the sentiment were to change and developers start entering back in, it's catered for that. As of right now, it's not catered for that, right? So a lot of people out there like to mistake this and compare it to like a meme, let's say, who partnered with like a celebrity and they say, oh wow, take a look at the attention that got. Well, again, it's different. This is catered towards something that hasn't really seen the wave yet, in a sense, right? Because this is catered towards developers, in which case there's not that many developers as of right now. So it's kind of preemptively preparing for a moment later, right? It's not really for right now, or should I say right here, right now. But yeah, besides that point though, I think sometimes people kind of say, oh, Polkadot's doing all of this, Polkadot developers are saying this and that or whatever, right? They like to allude to Polkadot 2.0 and all this. They like to say a lot of things that are going on with Polkadot aren't really affecting the price of DOT, which is its native token. Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, not really, right? Ever since we've seen Polkadot 2.0, the sentiment when it comes to Polkadot has been kind of reducing, even though arguably that's a very massive thing. But again, that type of stuff is built for later on. So I do like that thinking right there because it's kind of like anticipating a wave later on as opposed to trying to chase it later. I do like that because imagine if they try to do like flashy things as of right now, like partner up with a very famous celebrity. Sure, that probably creates some attention, but the space isn't doing the best anyways, right? So it would be very limited in terms of the impact that that could create. So I do like this approach a lot better. I think it's more focused on longevity, and I think it's more focused on, I think, a more sustainable sort of, I think, future, right? Because some projects out there, they try to do things at an unsustainable pace, and what happens, maybe the team eventually gives up. However, I don't feel like that's the vibe in this case. But yeah, besides that point though, let's take a look at DOT hypothetically at $50, in which case, again, like I mentioned earlier on the video, we're around 31 times lower than that. But actually, again, in the grand scheme of things, Polkadot is still a very famous project in my opinion. DOT still has over 1 million holders. If it could maintain that heading into a hypothetical altcoin season is a market cap of around 83 billion, which is more or less kind of the same as what Dogecoin at one point reached back in 2021. But besides that, would that sound so outlandish? Again, around an 83 billion market cap, which it would have actually at the price of $50 considering DOT's current circulating supply. Again, would that sound so outlandish if there was a full-on altcoin season? Probably not to me. But yeah, we'll wait and see. This is just kind of my outlook when it comes to Polkadot. And I think Polkadot did the right thing because they did a redesign and they made like the logo more simplistic. They also changed a lot of things to make kind of the overall vibe more minimalistic, the way you take a look at it. And again, I do like that. I think it was a smart move and it was a good thing they did it like during a time when the market wasn't doing the best. So then later on, it's a little bit more kind of established, the more serious vibe. So I do like that. And again, people like to tell me Polkadot 2.0 was a flop and all this. They thought it was just a complete failure, but I don't think about it that way, right? Sure, it didn't really matter at that time, according to some people, and also it didn't really align well with the altcoin space in terms of the sentiment. But imagine later on. Imagine if the sentiment were to come back in. Imagine if, let's say, there was mainstream attention when it comes to Polkadot. Keep in mind, Polkadot, it's a layer zero, right? We've heard about layer 1s, layer 2s, layer 3s, and all this, but I'm just saying, we take a look at a layer 0. So that's the thing. When it comes to Polkadot, it's just a little bit different. That's the way you take a look at it. After all, it's focused on interoperability. Keep in mind, it's focused on connecting blockchains together. The thing is, that's not really such a cool niche as of right now, according to some people, but keep in mind, Polkadot is arguably the #1 most popular within that niche. Is it really feasible for a project that's arguably the most popular within its niche to be forgotten about if there was an altcoin season? Especially when it comes to interoperability, I have a hard time seeing that, just because that space is relatively kind of okay in terms of popularity, and Polkadot's arguably the most famous one. Some people out there like to tell me that, oh, Cosmos is going to make it, right? Now, Cosmos is a very close competitor when it comes to Polkadot, but Atom, its native token, has a significantly quite smaller market cap than DOT. The thing is, if that's going to make it, Polkadot suddenly can't? Don't get me wrong, I also do believe in Cosmos, by the way. But if that can make it, why can't this? Also, Axelar, which is way smaller than this, right? It's kind of like a project that's also focused on interoperability, the way you take a look at it. Even though I also believe in that, some people are saying, oh, that's going to make it, Cosmos is going to make it. Which I hypothetically believe that, if they did, it wouldn't surprise me. But again, if they could make it, why can't something that's way more popular make it as well? Cosmos, Axelar, Polkadot, sometimes they kind of view it as a trio. A lot of people kind of view it in the same way in some cases, but again, Polkadot's just way more massive. So when it comes to this, why would I feel like it's just going to disappear? I don't feel like that in any way. I feel like when it comes to Polkadot, it still has the presence. I still think it has the fundamentals. And keep in mind, Polkadot has a quote-unquote sort of support system. That's the way you take a look at it. Take a look at Kusama. Kusama is Polkadot's canary network, by the way. And what is the purpose of even Kusama? Now, basically, developers, they usually, before they start off with Polkadot, they're typically going to launch something on Kusama first before, in some cases, they later do move on to Polkadot. The reason why is because it's supposedly a little bit cheaper to rent building space when compared to Polkadot. And also on top of that, it's supposedly easier to make changes on. So it just kind of gives more of a soft landing, right, for a lot of developers out there that may not necessarily just want to commit or just fully head on to Polkadot. Sometimes they don't want to do that. Sometimes they want to start off with Kusama first, kind of test out the water, so to speak, and then later on they move to Polkadot. They don't have to do that, though. Moonriver's on Kusama after all. And, again, it's not like it's a must that they have to move on to Polkadot later. I don't feel like that's hypothetically the case, but at least it's kind of like a testing ground, so to speak, right? So I do like that. Again, Polkadot, I think, has a pretty cool support system in the case of Kusama. Now, is Kusama doing the best? Absolutely not. It's having a major pullback, much like DOT, again, which is Polkadot's native token, but, once the Batman, once the Robin. Polkadot's like the Batman, Kusama's like the Robin. Sure, they're not doing the best as of right now when it comes to Polkadot and Kusama as a project, but what happens later on? We'll wait and see. This is why I'm still waiting, right? I just haven't given up. Keep in mind, when it comes to Polkadot, it's not like it's just completely forgotten about, in my opinion. I mean, it's still a quite popular project. I mean, any project I feel like in the top 50 as of right now, I just don't see why they wouldn't hypothetically kind of make it along if, let's say, there was a hypothetical altcoin season. This is just the way you take a look at it. And Polkadot is clearly top 50. Now we'll wait and see, but I'm just saying. What I like about me waiting is, personally, I feel like I'm not going to have to chase later on. I'm just waiting for the wave. That's the way you take a look at it. I'm dollar cost averaging once a month, by the way, right? I'm not doing it like, any less, not any more either. That's it. Keep it consistent at once a month. I keep it at a more sustainable pace. Again, this is not telling anyone to do anything, but this is just the way you take a look at it. I'd rather have more so of a sustainable pace as opposed to a pace that I can't really keep up with. That's my mindset, which is why I don't leave and enter like every 5 or 10 minutes. That's not my vibe. Or I don't leave like in a week or 2 weeks. That's not what I do. Keep in mind, when it comes to this space, a lot of people like to tell me, why am I not worried by waiting, right? Why am I not anxious by waiting? Well, the thing is, the reason why I don't feel those sort of pressures is because by me waiting, what is the timeline, right? In theory, if I held for the next 20 years, I could, but I'm just saying that sounds like a very long time, but I'm just saying, what is the time limit though? because I don't have a specific time limit. What pressure am I feeling? Like, pressure, in my opinion, would only come if, let's say, I had a time limit. Like, if, let's say, someone told me, oh, I could only wait or hold until a specific date, then I have to leave, then okay, I feel a lot of pressure because I'd feel like, oh, what happens if the charts aren't doing the best at that specific date, right? But in this case, by me holding DOT, I am not competing with anyone. I'm not trying to become the next Jeff Bezos. The thing is, also on top of that, I don't have a time limit in which I have to hold, so I don't feel any sort of additional pressure by holding. However long I'm going to have to wait, I'm going to wait. That's the way to take a look at it. I'm still going to have to live my life anyways. Imagine if I just left right now, which I clearly don't want to do, but I'm saying if I did that, am I still going to have to live my life this year? Absolutely. And so on in 2027, 2028. So I'd rather be holding than not, because either way I'm going to have to be living my life. So I'd rather be, again, holding as opposed to not. So I don't feel any sort of additional pressure by holding. This is kind of my mindset. But at the end of the day, I cannot control anything when it comes to this. The only thing I can do is stay patient, and that's what I'm going to do, because that's the only thing that's within my control. And I'm still dollar cost averaging, especially with DOT being below $2. I mean, here's the thing. If for whatever reason, DOT, let's say, goes like $20 or $30, again, in a hypothetical make-believe scenario, the thing for me is, would it really matter what point I acquired DOT at below $2? Whether or not it's like $1.43 or $1.78 or like $1.12 or whatever, right? I'm just making up some numbers here, but I'm saying, would it really matter? It's like, for instance, does it really matter at one point, like whether or not someone acquired Bitcoin at below 1,000? Probably as of right now, despite the pullback, not really, right? Because sure, acquiring it at like 200 would arguably be better than like 950. But I highly doubt that a lot of people that are holding from below 1,000 up until right now when it comes to Bitcoin are in a group chat complaining whether or not, or should I say kind of regretting whether or not they got it at this point or that point, right? I highly doubt that, because at one point it becomes negligible in a sense where the small differences in hindsight didn't really matter too much later on, because the project has hypothetically done pretty okay. So when it comes to DOT, if let's say it goes to like 20, 30 or whatever like that, anything below $2, am I going to complain? Yeah, I highly doubt that. And I'm not going to really care about the specific moment either, which is why I just dollar cost average once a month. That's it. I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but again, that's what I do. Because by me dollar cost averaging, sure, there's like some moments where I maybe got it a little bit higher. However, some moments I maybe got it a little bit lower. So it kind of evens it out later on by just consistently doing it. But again, this is just personally my mindset, and I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I'm still a fan when it comes to Polkadot, but there was some arguable average news when it comes to Polkadot. So of course I wanted to talk about it, and I'll be sure to make more updates when it comes to Polkadot. So hopefully I'll see y'all in future videos. It's Malik the Captain, and I'll see y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.